So the idea of the trip is, like kind of stemmed out of the fact that I never really left Wilmington. I grew up here in Wilmington, and then, I went to high school, and then I kind of like got rid of the car because I wasn't using it. And I went to the university right down the road, and in going to school and running cross country and track and field there, my entire school year was basically filled up. I couldn't do much else except for run, eat, and sleep, and school, essentially. And so the idea was to then go down the East Coast, go to St. Augustine, and in St. Augustine there begins Highway 90, and that's like a classic bicycle route across the country, like the southern tier of the United States. And then I got on Highway 90, and basically what it does is it takes you into like the heart of the Panhandle, and then you kind of like go kind of like middle of the Panhandle, get into Tallahassee. And when I got to Tallahassee, I stayed at the Bicycle House, and the guys there gave me really good advice of like where to go next. And so I went directly down to the Gulf and got on Highway 98. And so I left the Gulf, headed a little bit further north, and got around the north part of Houston. Took a highway, I'm pretty sure it's Highway 290 in Texas to Austin, and that was an awesome day in the sense that I had like a 30-mile-an-hour tailwind, and like you have this like giant shoulder, and I'm just flying this entire day. And get to Austin, spend 5 days there, head south down to San Antonio, and get back on Highway 90. Now, all this is not necessarily planned. I mean, I had an idea of what I wanted to do in my head, but every time I got somewhere and I met somebody, they would give me like the next like 100, 200 miles rundown of what I'm going to see, and like they would say, like, no, don't do this. Don't go through that town. Go over it, or like, like I never got a bad piece of advice. And for a lot of this, I didn't have a cell phone, and so stopping on the side of the road and talking to people kind of forced me to find like what much better routes, because Google Maps isn't always going to give you the best one. Having the kind of raw vulnerability of not having my phone on me was probably one of the best parts of the trip. So I first learned of the coronavirus, I think, probably before I left. I heard it existed, somewhere in China, and I was like, oh man, like this contagious disease, like I'm sure they, got a handle on it. Don't really think twice about it. And so I get my phone back working in New Orleans. I start listening to podcasts and like news updates and whatnot, and I'm kind of getting the idea is like, man, like this could be pretty bad. I heard one, estimates that it's gonna be a 3.4% death rate. Now it didn't really happen that way, but like that was projected, or like that's what was seen in one study. And so that kind of made me kind of concerned. That means 1 out of every 30 people we know is gonna die. That's tragic. So I didn't really know what that meant for me in this trip. I'm pretty sure that was the same day that they declared a state of emergency. And so I go to the grocery store like 10 o'clock in the morning, and it's busy, like very busy. And I'm like, oh shoot, I've never been to this grocery store, but like, like every, aisle at the registers is being taken up, and I get through and like not much hassle. I go back at like 6 o'clock that evening, and there's nothing left, like nothing at all. Like I couldn't find any beans and rice, or just anything that I was like mainly subsisting on, and that kind of scared me. So I leave Austin, and I still don't have a phone, and I end up going through a town called New Braunfels, and New Braunfels Library was like the first public place I saw that was like closed to coronavirus, and I like needed a library like ASAP because I didn't know where I was going. Ended up in that town running into this one lady who, I was looking at a sign funny. She's like, hey, can I help you? And I was like, yeah. can I use your computer? And she no hesitation said yes. And it was like, it's like, hey, like I understand, like this is a kind of a sensitive time. Like if you don't trust me, like I told her up front, like like, hey, I've been at a lot of public places and meeting a lot of people, and touching every gas station doorknob on the way, and so like, and she like bravely let me in. Looking back on it, like she had a family, she had a family, and like the media was making out to be something that would really hurt someone, and that was kind of like what seemed so simple, like in normal times, like had potentially large consequences. So a couple days going down Highway 90 after I go through San Antonio, which is like starting to shut down, like no public places are open. And I'm like sitting in this cafe just drinking a cup of coffee, and I'm surrounded by older people. And I knew this is, older people are much more susceptible to this disease, and that's where most of the deaths are coming from. I was terrified, like I couldn't morally keep going on. I could be hurting immense amounts of people, and I either had to make peace with that or stop. And then called a mentor of mine, and he's like, dude, I was just about to call you. What are you doing right now? Like, and we both came to the exact same conclusion, that I had to get it all together and get out of there. This is like maybe 40 or so miles from Del Rio, which is a small town on the Mexican border in central Texas. So I pulled in there, and the bike shop is closed when it's supposed to be open. And I'm like kind of walking around, like see if there's any like a bike box I can get my hands on, because if I get a bike box I can send it, but I need to be able to put my bike in a bike box to both either take it on the plane or send it through the mail. And and Tom, the guy who worked there, came in to close up, and because he went out to go get something to eat. I don't know what he was doing, but he came back and wanted nothing to do with me. And he, when I told him my story, he's like, all right, come in. And and he it's like, hey man, like if you need something to do, like he kind of warmed up to me, and he's like, hey man, I'll be here at like 10 o'clock tomorrow. And I was like, okay, sweet. And I was like, but like, it had to be at 10 o'clock because I had a flight at 12. And so I get there in the morning, like way early. I unpack everything I have, repack it in like like in the best way I can to like shove it in this box, and take my bike apart and like put it in. And this box is like bulging the sides, like it's like not looking good. Like it's in the box. It weighs about 100 pounds, and all I have on me is a green plastic bag that was made for rice, and that I've been using like to keep my food in. But now I had just a flannel, my sunglasses, some food like some granola and an apple, and and my swim goggles, and that was pretty much all I had to me. And I ran 2 miles to the airport, and at the airport, things were tense. And so navigating the pretty empty airports was also a kind of surreal thing, like most places stores are shut down, and it's like kind of like a waking up from a weird dream. Like not only was it kind of existential that I was pulling out of this grand adventure to go back where I was home, but like it was like ghost town, like there were people there. It was just like you knew that something's wrong, like where it's not a normal day. So that was pretty much the extent coronavirus had on my trip.